So again, welcome and thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Irene Parisi, the Chief Academic Officer for the State Department of Education, and I'm joined by my colleague Ajit Gopalakrishnan, who's the Chief Performance Officer at the State Department of Education. He'll be navigating many things behind the scenes. So our intentions today are really to help you deepen your understanding of the Connecticut standards for remote learning. We do want to provide some case illustrations as models to support the local design thinking. And we really do hope that you walk away and leave more curious about your local design for remote learning. Please do ask any questions utilizing the chat feature throughout the presentation. There will be opportunities for you to share and also engage through a few Menti questions. So don't be shy. So first, it's always important to lead with the why, and we want to let you know why did we create Connecticut Standards for Remote Learning. Well, out of the last legislative session through Public Act 21-2, we were charged with the task of creating and developing standards for remote learning specifically for students in grades 9 through 12, because commencing July 1 of 2022 and each school year thereafter, the local and regional boards of education would be able to create remote learning environments for students in grades 9 through 12. And those environments must be in compliance with these particular standards we have developed. How did we develop these standards? Well, I will share with you that we went through a rigorous review process, a rigorous information gathering process, and we really did seek out to learn and hear from our colleagues in district, teachers, building administrators, designers and directors of digital learning. We also spoke with students. The Remote Learning Commission was very active in this particular review. And we also looked at the national standards for quality online teaching programs and courses. That was a substantial resource for us. We went back to the other assets in the agency that we had previously produced, such as the Sensible Assessment Practices, our Reimagining Connecticut Classroom document, as well as the data that we learned from students from the Thought Exchange last year, as well as previous guidance created for alternative education settings. And then we did go through a substantial stakeholder engagement series through surveys with Qualtrics, as well as participating in Seek this week, which was really geared towards an audience for special populations and students with high needs. So we wanted to assure you that we arrived at this place with significant stakeholder input and research. Where we landed and what is included in the standards, which you may have seen already, is we've gone through a domain and standard approach. So you'll notice that there are 8 domains, and that is describing that larger body of knowledge. And under each domain are a set of standards that are related to those particular outcomes of that domain. And it was very important, we heard loud and clear, could you provide some guidance of what does that look like? What should we consider if we are creating this remote learning environment? So we were able to stand up related guidance specific to each domain, standard, and then the guidance. So what does that look like? But first, I do want to highlight that these are the 8 domains that we landed on. From, again, all of the research that we've collected and conversations we had with many people across the state, these were the ones that were prioritized and that we should not fail to consider in our design of the standards. And thank you, Ajit, for putting the link in the chat. So visually what this looks like, the overarching standards are again designed by domains with related standards, and immediately after is the related guidance. But if you have the document, you'll notice it looks something like this, where we have, we try to provide that description, and it really just does scroll through the page from standards to the guidance. And it's designed this way for accessibility reasons too, to make sure that all people, all learners have access to this and can understand. Oops, we're going to go through that. So we do want to check in for a moment. That's a lot of information. Hopefully you have the standards, you've read through the standards, but we want to understand too, where are you right now? Where is your district in terms of implementing a remote learning program for the next school year for students in grades 9 through 12? So Ajit, thank you, has put this link into the chat. So if you can just select that link and answer that question. Ajit, I don't know if there's something else they need to know. No, okay.
Nope, and we'll come back to you a little bit later in the presentation with the results of it.
So we'll try to put this link, I think, again, in the chat further down as people are joining us so they have access to it. Again, this is the question we're curious about. Take a moment to select the link in the chat and share with us where you are in terms of implementing next year. So now we're going to go into some case illustrations, which you can also call some case studies. What we heard in our conversations with, again, teacher colleagues, administrative colleagues, parents, as well as advocates, what would this, could this look like? So we have some case illustrations here that we're going to take you through. And what we tried to do is take you through, use the design cycle thinking. And we think that's important because it helps you really empathize with your community, understand the data that you're looking at, which then helps define your problem. And then you start to think about what would that prototype look like and then how might I test it? So you'll see a common theme here with these case illustrations. And yes, in case you're wondering, we will be able to share the slide deck so that you have the case illustrations to take back to your teams as you're talking through what your model might look like. So in this one in particular, there's a Connecticut high school team and its community that's desiring to expand on the course offerings. We heard this a lot. And there's student data, a recent survey informed this group that the students want to have access to these expanded course offerings because it's currently not in the program of studies. And in some ways, they may not be able to make it available in that particular high school course of studies. And this conversation is happening also with other surrounding districts, and they're thinking, how can we collaborate in order to expand the course offerings for all of our students? Because some schools might be small, may not have all of the necessary resources. So an interdistrict collaborative could happen to offer courses in a collaborative remote learning environment. So they've defined this problem that they're trying to solve. So the challenge is really having this opportunity available in the single master schedule to accommodate these course requests that students are advocating for, to ensure that all students can experience this elective. And that does provide for some more choice and access to these expanded course offerings or even unique course offerings that might not have been able to be offered previously. So they begin to think and share ideas. Let's brainstorm. So this high school team comes together. They share the ideas on the design of remote learning, and they're thinking, let's prioritize juniors and seniors and that they can have access to these expanded course offerings in this collaborative. And they're also prioritizing things like computer science or STEM or having this dual credit opportunity. So the team prioritizes computer science to really think through a course pathway for students. So now they're moving into that prototype phase, and their prototype now includes a very thoughtful project plan to really think about how will students enroll? What would student advising look like? What are our communication tools that we're going to develop and share? And this prototype interdistrict remote learning environment will need to include some support, such as a parent handbook or a student handbook. So the team also has to determine if we're going to support that, what would be the appropriate digital tools to help us in that? Which learning management system might we leverage, especially if we're talking about this as a collaborative, and what would the curriculum look like? Once that all of those things are considered and that prototype is set, they begin to think about how we're going to test. So the first test or we're calling a short cycle interdistrict remote learning academy, will begin in the fall of 22. And this will include that cohort of juniors and seniors that they've identified. And that innovation team now, this small team as project managers, are charged with monitoring and collecting the multiple data points that they have identified, as well as student work samples and student evidence to really analyze, how did we do? Did this work for us? Are there areas of improvement? And how might we scale this particular remote learning environment? So hopefully you'll notice this isn't very large. They're really being thoughtful about how small they start so that they can utilize all of the resources they have and really thinking about, if this works, how might we scale? Ajit, did I overlook anything in that particular case illustration? Thank you. The next one is a case illustration that really thinks about a course requirement. Now, before the pandemic, there were a number of high schools considering, how might we offer at least a single course online to learners so they really can develop the skills required in that workplace setting, and how might we develop those global citizenship skills that are actually aligned to our local learner framework or our portrait of the graduate. So that's what people are empathizing with here in this particular high school, is we still want to offer this online course because we want to have some sort of blended approach. And a recent parent survey actually highlighted that we want our students to actually develop skills, yes, online, but also for financial literacy. Our kids really need to develop those skills. So that's what they're empathizing with. That's what the data is showing them. So they move to defining what it is, what is the problem we're trying to solve. So here's the challenge. Again, availability in the master's schedule, and thinking about how to accommodate the enrollment to ensure that all students in their high school can participate in an online course and maybe meet a graduation requirement related to financial literacy. And thinking about the parents and the community and what they've requested for that particular option. So here we are again, the high school innovation team, they begin to brainstorm, they come together, they share their ideas and create a plan for a remote learning academy that will offer a single online course for all students prior to graduation. And again, from that survey that they've empathized with, to prioritize personal finance or financial literacy. And in some ways, this helps them move this particular credit from a quarter credit, because they realize that, to more of a half credit, so they can really build out these skills and show that they value the concepts built within that personal finance course, and now making this required for all of their high school students, but in that remote learning academy. So this prototype will include, again, development of the local processes for enrollment. How might they monitor? What do the communication tools look like? As well as those handbooks. We're hearing loud and clear from all of the different remote learning schools across the country that these parent, student, and staff handbooks are really critical in that online environment. So this high school innovation team has determined that that's what they will do, as well as determine what are the appropriate digital tools, learning management system, and that personal finance or financial literacy curriculum that they will then use to meet this particular design. So they're planning to test, and this remote learning academy, this short cycle, will begin in the fall of 22. And in phase 1 of this remote learning academy will include a cohort of just juniors and seniors in semester 1. And this innovation team will continue to monitor, collect these important data points, student evidence, even through a student survey to say, how did that work for us? And then consider, what are the areas of improvement? How might we scale for semester 2, which potentially could include maybe sophomores at this point? The aim also too is to create additional opens within the student schedule that might help them access other courses that are in person or has the potential to be offered in a remote setting. The next case illustration is the idea of having a blended approach. So this is having a remote learning academy while students are engaging now and really accessing work-based experiences or work study releases or even internships for seniors. So using the community data and the desire to have a blended approach, but really focused on the seniors. We know what senior year looks like for students, and rather than having numerous study halls in their schedule, how might we create this blended approach, which really does scale our commitment to work-based experiences and allowing them to participate in that. So the challenge that they are trying to define is providing this robust course of study for students that they can engage in these work release programs, and really thinking about that important component and having that successful experience along with staying engaged through courses that might be offered in a remote setting. This also opens up the opportunity to be aligned and matched with mentors, professional mentors in the community, which now collectively really builds out their work-based experience program in this local high school. So again, the high school innovation team comes together, they brainstorm to share ideas and really prioritize a program of studies for remote learning that actually mirrors what the program of study looks like in person, so that at any given point, the students that are learning in a remote setting can pivot and come to school and access the same course and not feel as if they're locked out or they have to wait. School counselors are a part of this design because this is part of that student success planning process to really provide a focus on advising, on enrolling in the appropriate remote course that is also matched with this work-based experience or work release internship. So the prototype will include all of those things, as well as a prioritized set of courses. So maybe starting small with just 5 courses and using previous year's data to help inform that. The enrollment process will now include a set of criteria that will include that there's an assurance that that student is matched with a work-based or work release program. We'll have to look at attendance and other selected data. And this one really needs those supports to include parent, student, and staff in this experience so that these seniors have a very well-defined in-person, blended, and in the field type of experience. So the team decides they're going to test this, and this short cycle work release internship program matched with online learning will begin in the spring of 23. And this cohort will begin with just 50 to 75 seniors. The team will certainly monitor and collect multiple data points, which will also include the reports from the field and these matched work-based experiences. They need student evidence to really analyze any areas of improvement and certainly for scaling in the next year. Ajit, I'll pause for a moment in case I'm overlooking anything and if you want to jump in. I think we're on to our last case illustration, which is what we've been hearing a lot about, addressing school avoidance. So can remote learning or a remote learning academy actually help us address school avoidance? So this Connecticut high school team and its community really desires to re-engage their learners that really have been identified as disengaged or avoiding school altogether. So school administrators have talked with their teachers and staff, as well as those students that are avoiding school, the families and community service providers, and they've recognized that students do have a significant increase in anxiety in coming to school. So the challenge is with this particular set of students that have shown signs of avoidance, and this data of the particular group of students show that they're not socializing any longer. They seem really withdrawn from school, even withdrawn from home activities. They show unspecified illnesses and really are showing that they're sick in the morning. They can be angry, very sad or anxious, and they just do not want to go to school or be included in these social situations. So let's think about the ideas that we can share. So this high school innovation team come together. They brainstorm and begin to plan and think through a summer learning academy that will begin to integrate students back into these social settings. And even if it's in this online community, this helps students build some trust and some confidence and make connections to the adults in their building. So the Summer Remote Learning Academy will create potential ramp for bringing these students back to school for a portion of the day in the fall. So here's the prototype. They will create that 2022 Summer Remote Learning Academy for this cohort of identified students. And the team knows that they have to be very mindful of bringing the student to the table so they understand why are they engaging in their summer in this online experience. And so it'll be very important to have them at the table so they understand that we're hoping to bring you back into the fall as the comfort allows. And that's why we've highlighted that it is very important to provide for that one-to-one planning with the students. So the actual test will be to implement that short cycle prototype for 2022 Summer Academy for that subset of students that have been identified, and an assigned adult to a specific group of students to really monitor, collect, and this might be more than just by the numbers. We may have to have conversations with the student, keeping logs and checking in with them to really support that re-engagement into the school community. So at this point, I think I hope you recognize the potential in remote learning, but recognize also how important it is to look at data, look at evidence, bring everyone to the table, or even just create that innovation team that can define the challenge that we're trying to solve, and then what might that prototype look like, and how might we test it. So I think we're going to pause there for a moment. And let's go back, Ajit, to that survey that we did in the beginning.
Yes. Thanks,
A
Irene,
lot
and
of
thank you.
information.
Yeah, no, this is there is obviously a lot, and it's after 5, and folks are listening to this, and so thank you again for participating in the survey. When we it is interesting. There is I know with everything going on in schools, this is one other thing that came on our plates and an option. The survey is saying that among the respondents, there are about 26% of you have been exploring some ideas, but don't have a definitive plan. 63% of you are just beginning some exploratory conversations. So put together, almost 90% of our districts are in conversations. Some may be a little bit further along than others. There's a very small percentage who have board approval, 4%, and 7% decided not to implement for next year. So, I think this is interesting, Irene, that I think a lot of folks are in the exploration phase, just sort of figuring out what does the guidance say, what do we want to do, what does our community want, what do our students want, and I think folks are in that phase for the most part.
Great. I think it's exciting, and I like the idea that there's that exploration phase that they're in and exploring these ideas and gathering more information. So now we want to learn a little bit more. So Ajit has put in, and we're going to put it into the chat, a Menti, and we have 2 reflection questions based on the set of standards, as well as those case illustrations and what you might be thinking. So the first question, in about 10 words, tell us what your remote learning program is about, because this is an opportunity for us to see that and see it in your own words and kind of think through that. See how it might align to the standards. And then the second reflection question is, what challenges do you anticipate with implementing a remote learning program in your district? So we'll take a moment and think through those.
So we'll start with the first question. For those of you who are on the phone, you can go to www.mentimenti.com and you can use a code 2955 2763. 2955-2763. And Irene, I'm going to share my screen now, which has the Menti on there.
Got it.
And let's see if that works.
Perfect. I see it.
Okay. Oops, I think I've got the wrong slide on. Oh, I think I messed up here.
I see the one now with about 10 words. Tell us what your remote learning program is about.
Yeah, I think I may have messed up here. I'm so sorry. I think I had the second question up for some reason.
Responses are coming in.
Equity.
Mhm. Which was the primary intention of the standards by the legislators to really ensure that students have options and access to the point of one of the case illustrations of accessing opportunities that they may not have access to in their own district. Mhm.
I'm just going to read out a couple because I know folks
Sure.
on the phone may not be able to obviously see this. So engaging students either through enrichment or personal interest, expanded opportunities for students, extending learning opportunities for students, maintain a bridge between home and school, ensuring academic consistency, access and equity. These are very heartening to see. Access to specialty courses beyond what we offer. We think that was one of the case illustrations and a really good place to start with this type of program.
Absolutely.
All right. Let me now move to the second question, which I mistakenly had up there first. So let's, we have a whole bunch of positives, I guess, that have come in here, but let's actually put in what are some of the challenges you anticipate with implementing this program. Student engagement.
Providing choice.
Staffing and funding. Also union challenges, the perception that work is being taken away through remote learning. Staffing hours, measuring student engagement. Buy-in from all administrators and parents. Engaging scholars who choose to opt out. Staff burnout, student engagement and staff burnout.
So I do hope that there was some potential in seeing the case illustrations because some of these challenges were part of that design and really considering who might be the staff. We have heard from some districts that there might be dedicated staff to this first cycle cohort that they might be thinking about so that there isn't staff burnout. The student engagement piece, if you've noticed in the standards, this is highlighted throughout. There's an actual domain dedicated to learner engagement and some other things to consider, as well as the related guidance to consider in that design to assure that there is full student engagement. I think if there is a concern about buy-in from all administrators and parents, that's probably a cornerstone to the very beginning of designing this. So maybe they need to be brought to the table as part of the design team or really gauge where they are so that you can continue in your plan. I think buy-in is number one if you're going to be successful in implementing this type of environment.
I saw another point in there too about data from the prior remote learning experience, from data from previous remote learning as another potential challenge. The experience we had for some students was not the greatest, and how do we design systems that counteract that? Okay, I think we've got some good thoughts here, Irene. So I guess we can now open it up for for audio comments, feedback, questions from your side, you can use the raise hand feature and I can unmute you. You can ask a question, you can weigh in. So please feel free to do that. And
Not seeing any hands yet. Well, we're waiting to see if people want to open up and ask a question. I did want to address the funding because we have heard this from stakeholders as well as the many different organizations that we spoke with. This is in no way to say that this is a cost savings. We do recognize that in order to do this and to do this well, that there should be substantial dollars put to this type of programming if it's to be done well, to ensure that you have the buy-in that you need in order for this to be successful. So this is not about replacing anyone or any position or even considering that you can save money. If anything, it's the opposite, that this will require additional funding. Or a reallocation in some ways, but it's definitely not a cost savings. But again, that's why that local design team is so critical to this.
again, if you wish to ask a question orally, feel free to raise your hand, or you can also type a question in the chat if you'd like.
Sure. A request to share the text of the legislation. Suji, are you able to pull, or I can go back to the slide?
I can do that. There's another question that you could take while I go get the.
Sure, absolutely.
Yep.
So the question is, do plans need state approval prior to implementation? No, they do not need approval prior to implementation. However, we are planning to do a statewide survey to get a sense of who is implementing, because we want to be able to support and also learn from you as you are creating these models and implementing, and want to learn what are some of the best practices, but also to get feedback on the standards, because we do want to, now that they're in practice, make sure that they are that they make sense and they actually support you. So there'll be that opportunity for a feedback loop. So no, they do not have to be approved by the Department of Education. However, you do need to comply with the standards and specifically to the attendance requirements, and certainly if it's being credit bearing, aligning to the high school graduation requirements. Another question, do these remote learning standards apply more immediately to things like remote learning snow days, or is this only to guide program development? So these standards, that is not part of anyone's authority right now to use remote learning for snow days. So this is specific to designing a remote learning program for students in grades 9 through 12 for next year, beginning in the fall of 22. And I know Ajit is going to bring up the legislation. And there it is. It's in the chat. So Damon, hopefully that helps.
There's more. There's another section, I think, but I'll get to that. There's another question here. As a private school, if we wanted to provide any kind of online component to our kids who come from districts all over the state, would we have to get approval from their respective DOEs every time? And as a private school, do you mean you're an approved private special education program? Yes. So again, Irene, you should jump in here if you want to, but it seems like the IEP for the student is pretty much going to govern what the program is to be offered for that student. So I would imagine the IEP will determine if remote is applicable for that student. And if that's part of the IEP, then it would be administered in concert with what's in the IEP.
I would agree. And having worked with Brian Klimkowitz on the development of the standards, and that is referenced also in there that it would be specific to that IEP. So hopefully that helps, Devin. Just checking the chat messages. Okay.
Anybody want to raise hand? So there's a question about, given that FY23 budgets are already in process, which grants would be best to tap into?
So we do know that some districts are utilizing their relief funding in some sort of R&D, like research and design approach. Some districts had already put in there for this year to be kind of a planning year and providing teachers with stipends to help create the design of this. And certainly that relief funding, though it ends in FY24 for most, for the ARBESSER, you could request a revision if this is now part of that overall design for the district. You are welcome. There might be also, I'm guessing that most districts have some sort of education organization that also offers kind of innovation grants. So that might be something to tap into if all other funds are exhausted, and certainly with budgets now in the hands of the town or the city and pending approval like May or June, that might be another opportunity. So again, I do want to highlight that we will be, that one of the next steps is to share a survey asking people to volunteer and share what they are designing, because we do learn best from you. And you've seen here today 5 different case illustrations, but we hope that there's potential in collecting more case illustrations so that other districts can learn on how they can start small and what things they need to consider in this design. Great, thank you, Erin, for sharing that. Again, we'll share the slide deck, and you can use those in having conversations. And please, if you create other ones, you can share them directly with me. I'll be sharing my email address so you can submit them. So Ajit, you've added more legislated language.
I just added the subsections A and B. I think I had put in C before, so this just gives the whole section. I think C pertains to the district, but A and B just give you the background on it and the role of the state in issuing this guidance. I just want to call out, Irene, in the guidance itself, in the standards document that we've created, we did encourage districts and strongly recommend districts that they start small, which I think the case illustrations drive that point, and potentially even consider remote learning starting with upperclassmen, if that makes sense in your situation, who have grounded themselves well in the high school environment. when we looked at the last 2 years, the students in 9th and 10th grades is where we have seen big spikes in absenteeism. And so, in terms of thinking about where to implement, there is a recommendation in the guidelines document for focusing on upperclassmen. So we would strongly recommend that and encourage that, and that you maintain a robust in-person program. While there is a remote option, obviously, that's opened up here for grades 9 through 12, we also strongly encourage maintaining that robust in-person program. We don't know how this is all going to play out, obviously, over the next few years, but here we are dipping our feet in this water with you, and hopefully this presentation has been helpful in setting that context.
I did want to add to something that you said, because we did hear loud and clear from students. They really want the opportunity to be able to pivot. So they actually shared with me they would love to have access to something called Pivot Labs. So if they are enrolled in an online science course or even a mathematics course that requires a lab experience, that they can pivot and have the labs take place on campus. So that just shows you that they too are thinking about this as increasing access, but really wanting to stay connected to their school. It's not about being completely disconnected from the school community, and really leveraging these opportunities in these two spaces in more of a blended approach. So I thought that was quite interesting. They also asked for more training, not only for themselves, but for their teachers. So they were asking us of what other additional professional learning can be provided to their teachers so that they can all be successful in this experience. So the students were tremendous advocates for their teachers and for this particular work. The other thing I wanted to highlight is, I think specifically in Domain 8, which Domain 8 probably has the most set of standards. There are 18. And in the related guidance, again, this comes from students, but also from parents and from the teachers that we spoke to and the Remote Learning Commission, is to ensure that there is an opportunity for students that are in that remote learning environment to be able to come back and access those other experiences that really make them a well-rounded individual and student, such as athletics, any academic advising. They want to stay connected to the arts and any kind of music or performance programs, and again, those pivot labs. So what I'm sharing that's Domain 8, but all of the domains have a lot of detail and are very well thought out to support you in your overall design of a remote learning environment, program, or academy.
I wanted to add one other thing, Irene, which is that what we shared today was guidance for districts and the standards to develop remote learning programs in grades 9 through 12. It's permissive. You don't have to do it, but you can. And it's what you can offer in grades 9 through 12 in your own local settings. In parallel, there is another effort that's underway, authorized in statute, which we haven't discussed really today, is the feasibility of a statewide remote school. That's different. I just want to be clear in case you're thinking about what I'm sure you've heard of it, that work is going on. So I just wanted to mention that what we talked today was really just what you would do within your own local situations for grades 9 through 12 only. There is a parallel effort that's looking at remote learning. There's a remote learning commission with the alphabet soup of stakeholder groups who are at the table working with us, thinking through what a statewide school would look like and how that would work. But we hope that the standards and the guidelines we've released here for your purpose for grades 9 through 12 will basically be the foundation that will also inform that statewide work. So just want to make sure you're aware that there is a parallel work that's underway on a slightly different time schedule, but that is happening as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the two sometimes get confused. There are a couple of questions that came up in the chat, so I wanted to address those. So thank you, Bob and Vernon. Will there be future opportunities for districts to share ideas and plans with each other? Yes, and we want to help create those opportunities. As I shared, that we want to learn too from you, because there are some really creative designs that are already being thought out across the state. So we want to bring them to the table too, to be able to share their design, their models, and everything that they've thought of and did not fail to consider in the design, because they're ready to implement in the fall of 22. So yes, we will be helping to coordinate more opportunities for that. There's another question related to the RESCs, if they're planning to develop plans for regional access. We do know that the RESCs are talking with the districts that they serve within their region. So I would say, yes, there probably are some plans. We don't necessarily know what those plans may look like, because again, the RESC is serving that particular region. But again, we want to learn from them and what those designs might be. And some might be more creative than others, just based on the resources they may have to offer. So again, we're excited by the future and what they might be developing. So I would encourage you, Megan, who asked the question, perhaps reaching out to either the executive director or someone that might be responsible for that work at the local RESC, and see what they're thinking and what their the future holds for them. I also added, in case you're curious, the Remote Learning Commission link in the chat. This is present and ongoing. Our next meeting is, I think, March 11th, and we are continuing to discuss what does a statewide K-12 remote learning school look like. It's very well represented, very good conversation, and we're getting now into the point of these different work groups for stakeholder engagement to learn more of, like, what does it need to look like as we continue to build the plan for the commissioner, the preliminary plan, and the feasibility study. All of the commission meetings are recorded, so if you cannot attend or stream in the moment, you can certainly watch the videos that are posted on the website and review the minutes. So again, if anyone has a question that you would like to throw out, please raise your hand or share in the chat. Ajit, is there anything that we overlooked?
I can't think of anything. I think we provided a comprehensive overview here, and we appreciate your feedback on the survey. That really does give us a pulse of where you are and where your thinking is at this point. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Irene. I think, Irene, you had a slide with your contact.
Yes, I'm going to present again so that we
I'm
can
going to put that in the chat as well, in case folks.
Let's see where I'm at.
I can't imagine there's somebody that doesn't know your email or how to get a hold of you, but I'll put that in the chat.
I think people can figure it out. So
Yeah.
get there. So please don't hesitate to contact me if you have questions or you want to think through. Please contact me, irene.parisi@ct.gov. You can certainly call me. I'm in the office every day, 860-713-6. Why does it say 6823? It's 6852. Gotta fix that one.
6852.
Yes.
I'm fixing it in the chat posting. So there you go.
Thank you. And also here, which will be included, there's two ways to access the standards right now from the Remote Learning Commission page. They are posted there, but you can also go through the CT Learning Hub and into the K-12 Model Curriculum Hub. It's listed there under educational standards, because these are educational standards that do align with all other educational standards to ensure that students do have a high quality learning experience. So those are two ways to get at the standards. But yes, I'm anxious to hear more, learn more from you. And like you said, Ajit, I hope that this was a good first step in getting started and maybe sparking some creativity and innovation in the field. So I guess if there are no more questions, then perhaps we'll give you back a few minutes in your day. We do appreciate you finding time this evening to be with us, and we'll communicate more opportunities soon.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.